Today I will be solving and explaining chapter 5 of Human Biology, Sylvia Mader's, the 14th edition. I'm going to be solving the assess part that you find in the end of each chapter. So let's start with question number 1. Which of the following is not a function of the cardiovascular system? So transporting oxygen, basically that's what your heart does. It pumps blood full of oxygen and it has to transport it to your rest of your body, and it removes waste materials. Yes, it moves them to the kidney and the liver. Allows for the detection of stimuli from the external environment. So stimuli is basically a change in your outer environment, the environment outside your body. For example, let's say you touch a hot surface. Here the stimuli will be the hot surface, and there is the set detection. So think about it. If you're feeling the hot surface, that surface hot, does it have to do anything with your heart, with your blood vessels? No. This is actually a function of the nervous system. Your brain is telling you that it's hot. In this case it will be your spinal cord, but we'll get to that later. So this is a function of the nervous system. I can already say it's B. Let's look at the other answer. Participate in temperature homeostasis. Yes, cardiovascular system, it consists of the heart and the blood vessels. And during, for example, when you're hot, let's say when you're feeling hot, what will happen to your blood vessels is that they will dilate, means that they will widen. So, and the opposite is true in cold, so it is part of homeostasis regulation. Transport cells of the immune system, white blood cells, and all of different types are transported within the blood, and that blood is transported in the blood vessels, which are part of the cardiovascular system. Option 2. Which body system assesses the cardiovascular system by removing excess interstitial fluid from around the cell? So whenever you see the word excess fluid, you should know that it is the lymphatic system. Interstitial fluid, in other words, it's the tissue fluid, okay, the ones that did not get absorbed by the venular end of a capillary. If it's in excess, then your lymphatic system will basically take them, and it will eventually merge it, returns back to your cardiovascular system. Let's see. So the rest of question 3 to 7, I have these A to E and venules, which are basically I like to call it the transition between a vein, in this case between a capillary and a vein. Okay, same thing with arterioles, it's transition from an artery to a capillary. Arteries and veins, we already know them. Capillaries, we know them. So let's see. Drain blood from capillaries. Since they're saying from capillaries, the answer will be venules A. Because it's from capillaries, it means that the capillaries are here. For example, don't mind my drawing, it's just, this is my bed of capillaries, and then these all will join here at the venule. The venule, it will basically collect the blood from the capillary and it will pass it on to the veins, empty into capillary. So I have something and I'm going to empty my blood into a capillary. That will be the arteriole. As I told you, it cannot be the artery directly because we have the transition, and that transition state is carried out by the arterioles. May contain valves, veins, because they depend to prevent the backflow of blood back. Okay, so this is B. It's a little smudged. Okay, let me try to write it here. Yes, muscular vessels. So whenever I see the word muscular vessels, I can already assume what's gonna be, but let's read the rest. That move blood away from the heart. Away from the heart, away from the heart, and muscular, always arteries. Okay. There are some books we have the definition of an artery is a blood vessels that carries blood away from the heart. You cannot say it's an oxygenated or deoxygenated because we have an exception, the pulmonary artery. So a definition that works for all of them is that they are all going away from the heart, and the opposite is true for veins. Site for the exchange of substances between blood and the tissue fluid or interstitial fluid. And this one is the capillary. Whenever you see we use capillaries because they're one cell thick, and this will provide us with a large surface area. This will decrease the speed of blood, and it will allow for the efficient exchange of materials or nutrients between the blood and the tissue fluid. Now coming to question number 8, which of the following lists the event of the cardiac cycle in the correct order? So cardiac cycle, the first thing that you can say happen is that the upper chambers, which are the atria, they contract, then comes the ventricles. So both atria contract, then both ventricles. Yes, it's always from up to down. An electrocardiogram measures chemical signals in the brain and heart. No. Electrical activity in the brain and heart. Nope. Chemical signals in the heart, electric changes in the wall of the heart. So we actually measure the electrical changes. It's because in the heart we know that the heart muscles, the cardiac muscles, they're involuntary. We do not control them. But there's something called a pacemaker or like a sinoatrial valve, and it is the one that tells the heart to start pumping, and that signal, the way that's done in the heart, is via electricity. That's why if somebody like heart stops, you will see in movies or films, like they will say they will have a shock, that shock machine where they try to shock them with electricity. Yep, we're trying to send an electrical impulse into the heart. So it measures the electrical changes into the heart, on the walls of the heart. Blood moving, from left atrium to left ventricle passes through which of the following valves? So this is where you have to learn their name, memorize their names. Always the left one is bicuspid, the right one is tricuspid. Bicuspid is because it has 2 cusps, and tricuspid is obviously 3 cusps. Aortic semilunar valves. A semilunar valve is between the ventricle and the aorta, or the ventricle and the pulmonary artery. But these bicuspid and tricuspid, there are type of atrioventricular valves in which they are between the atria and the ventricle. Features of the cardiovascular system. Blood pressure is highest in the dash of the cardiovascular system. As I told you, musculars, and they have thin lumen, they have a narrow lumen, and they do not need valves because they always carry blood on high pressure and it's not going to flow back. So that one would be artery. Veins, they have valves because the pressure is lowest and there is a risk of blood going up the wrong way, especially for example in your legs. Capillaries, we told you they're one cell thick, so if pressure is high they're gonna burst. We slow the blood so its pressure is low, and nutrient exchange can happen. Number 12, let me just circle this one. 12, a blood pressure reading of 145/90 indicates. So in most cases it's common, the most agreed upon number for a normal blood pressure is 120/90 or 120/80. Some people it's 130/80, so it's just about that range. So this one 145/90 is very high. So as I told you in biology, I believe in chapter 3 or chapter 4, the word hyper means more in bio, and the word hypo means less. So as I told you, right now it's very high, so it is always hyper. Hypertension. Number 13, the skeletal muscle pump assists with blood flow in the skeletal muscles are the muscles that are attached to our skeleton, basically, and they're voluntary, and their contraction actually is the one that helps the flow of blood in the veins. Again, returning to the veins, their structure, they have a wide lumen. They do not have that much of muscle in their tunica media, which is a layer of the vein. So imagine a vein in your leg. How is blood going to travel all the way up to your heart? And that is where the skeletal muscles come in to the picture, is that they will contract to move the blood up against gravity. So it's just they will work together, each one is contracting, and they will push the blood. And this is why we have valves. So when a muscle cannot contract infinitely, it has to contract and relax. So when the muscle is relaxing, blood doesn't pull, it doesn't go all the way down. The valve will prevent the blood from flowing back while the muscle is relaxing, and then it will continue to contract and relax until it just reaches the heart. Okay, so now we have a labeling question. Label the blood vessels in the following diagram. So let's go alphabetically. Let's start with A. Obviously this is the lungs, and we are in the left side of the heart, and this one will be it's coming towards the heart. Okay, so it's coming towards the heart. This is the pulmonary vein. Okay, B is the aorta. It coming out to the left ventricle, biggest artery in our body. C, look at the organ where it's going. These are the kidneys. You can say the biological term or the medical term for kidneys are renal. So anything related to it will be renal artery. D is actually a lymph vessel. That green part, it will, if you have excess tissue fluid, especially here around the capillary bed, it's going to absorb it, and look, it's merging with here. Okay, it's merging here, and you will basically, it will be returned to your blood vessels. Where were we? Yeah, we finished D. E, it's going from the right ventricle to the lungs, which is the pulmonary artery, the only artery that does not carry or that carries oxygenated blood. F is the this one is the superior vena cava, because it's the vein and it's coming towards the right ventricle, right atrium, and yeah, this is F. Coming to G. G is also, look, it's also coming to the right atrium, but this one is called superior vena cava. This one is called inferior vena cava because it's down. Inferior means it's down, something you have to look down upon. H, look at where it's the organ. This one, the organ that it's attached to, which is the liver. So the liver is hepatic. So this is a hepatic vein, because anything going towards the heart is a vein, anything going away from the heart is an artery. I, now this is a special vein that you have to know its name. This is the small intestine, and then it's going to the liver. It's actually called the hepatic portal vein, and hopefully we'll learn more about it in the digestive system chapter. Finally, J, again, anything that has to do with kidney, renal, so it's going towards the heart, so it's a renal vein. Coming to question number 15. Water enters the venous end of capillaries because venous end, or the venules, you can say venous end of capillaries, it will become a venule. Why does the water, aka the tissue fluid, return to the venule? It returns actually because of the osmotic pressure is higher than the blood pressure. We said that in capillaries the blood pressure decreases. Okay, so if the blood pressure is already decreased, and here this is your blood vessel, let's say your venous end of the capillary, and due to the size of the capillary, proteins and plasma, they cannot come out. So here you have proteins, and you have some big proteins mainly, have some big salts that could not diffuse out of the capillary. So these ones here, they would decrease the water potential. And you know, osmosis is the movement of water from a region of higher water concentration, of high water potential, into a region of low water potential. Lymph is formed from, we just said, excess interstitial fluid. 16b. In dash, a blood vessel bursts, okay, sending blood into surrounding tissues such as the brain. Okay, angina pectoris, this is actually just chest pain, heart attack, atherosclerosis, this is basically the deposition of fat on the blood vessel, mainly artery. A stroke, yes. Okay, which I cannot read this whole part, so let's just this one. Cannot read the question, yeah, like this. Which of the following conditions is characterized by the accumulation of plaque in a blood vessel? It's just right now said it, it's atherosclerosis, this one. And this is the end of the video. If you have any confusion, please write it in the comments. Thanks for watching.